Hello students, this will be the sixth session of the chapter Directing, and in this session first I am going to continue with the remaining portion of leadership as an element of directing. We are now discussing leadership as an element of directing. So the next topic under leadership will be qualities of a good leader. You can write the topic as essential qualities of a good leader, pages 263 to 264 in my book. You see the page number of your book and then write essential qualities of a good leader. Mark the topic important. Mark the topic important. Essential qualities of a good leader. So open the bracket from the heading qualities of a good leader and underline it. Open the bracket from the heading itself and underline it. Qualities of a good leader. Now, in order to be a good leader, I told you before that every manager, all managers cannot become good leaders. It's a very few among them ultimately prove to be good leaders. Because in order to become a good leader, an individual requires to possess a number of inert qualities. And these qualities, most of these qualities are inborn qualities. A person is born with these qualities. So therefore, only a few persons, only a few managers can become a successful leader. So let us see that if a manager, in the context of a commercial organization, if a manager has to become a good leader, then what qualities he must possess. Number one, sound physique. Underline the point headings. The first quality which a leader must possess is sound physique. A good leader must have good health and physical fitness. He should not fall ill regularly. He should be straight and stout, fully fit, physically and mentally fit. Okay. He requires tremendous stamina and vigor for hard work. He must have the ability to work very hard and set an example in front of his followers. Great deal of stamina he should have. And he should have the vigor, the urge for hard work. He should have a good physical personality. Number two, intelligence. Second quality of a good leader, that he must be an intelligent person, a very sharp person. His IQ level should be on the higher side. So a leader should be intelligent enough to examine the problems in the right perspective. Whenever he faces a number of problems, grievances being forwarded to him by the subordinates, he must have the intelligence to assess and analyze these problems and grievances in the right perspective. He should have the ability to assess the pros and cons of his actions in a particular situation. So he must have the ability to understand the effects of his action in a particular situation. That if he is going to take this action to solve this particular problem, what is going to be the reaction after that? So he must have the ability to judge the effects of his actions. He requires a logical bend of mind and a mature outlook. Only a knowledgeable and competent person can instruct subordinates correctly. Number three, initiative. The leader is a person who always takes the initiative to start something new, to show something new to his subordinates, to encourage the subordinates to do something new, to venture into new ideas. So a leader should cancel the word have and write take. A leader should take initiatives, make it plural, initiatives, and after and give an arrow and write at the top have. So the sentence will be a leader should take initiatives and have courage. A leader should have the proper amount of courage to take initiatives, to start new things, new proceedings in the organization. He should not wait for opportunities to come to his way. A leader should not wait for an indefinite period of time for good times to come, the opportunities to come to his way. Rather, he should try to identify opportunities in the environment and grab them, snatch them if required, from others for the betterment of his own organization and his subordinates. Rather, he should grab the opportunity and use it for the benefit of the organization. Integrity. Underline, he must be a sincere, dedicated, and honest individual. He must set an example. He must have moral values, a very honest and upright and sincere person. And with the help of these qualities, he should try to inspire his subordinates to follow his footsteps. A leader should be honest and sincere. He should be a role model to others, to his followers especially, in terms of ethics and values. So he should try to become a role model to his followers in terms of ethics and moral values. Decisiveness. A leader is a person who has the ability to take the right decision at the right time, and once he has taken the decision, he should stick to that decision. He should not keep his feet on two boats. He should not suffer from indecisions. He must have the ability to take the right decision at the right time, and once the decision has been taken, he must stick to that decision. So the leader should be decisive and firm in his opinion. He should have an objective outlook, free from bias and prejudice. And most important thing is that once he has taken a decision, he will remain firm on that decision, and the decision must be taken. He must take the decision which is free from all sorts of partiality, nepotism, bias, favoritism, and prejudice. The decision has to be free from all these things. He must take that decision which he feels will be the best for the organization and for his followers. He should form his opinion and judgment on the basis of facts alone. He should take decisions, he should give opinions on the basis of facts and not on the basis of his whims and mere desire. He needs an open mind. A leader needs to have an open mind. He must accept new ideas from his subordinates. Okay? He needs an open mind. He must be willing to listen to others and adopt new ideas. Emotional stability. He must have a good emotional balance, mental balance. Should not get irritated very quickly. Must always maintain his cool and calm in all circumstances, especially in trying situations, in awkward situations, challenging situations. The leader should have a good temperament and emotional balance. He should not be unduly moved by emotions and sentiments. He should not show his emotions and should not be unduly moved or very quickly moved or driven by emotions and sentiments. He should not lose his temper or show indecisiveness even in the face of heavy odds. Number 7, self-confidence and willpower. He must have adequate amount of self-confidence and willpower. If he doesn't have the self-confidence, he won't be able to take risks or start the proceedings of doing something new. He won't be able to take that initiative if he doesn't have the self-confidence, the confidence in himself. So self-confidence and willpower. A good leader should have confidence in his own ability to lead others. He must have the confidence inside him to lead others. He also requires the willpower to meet the needs of every situation. He can inspire others, motivate others, and win their trust only when he has full confidence in himself and a strong will to win. A leader can motivate, can inspire his subordinates and win their loyalty, win their trust only when he has full confidence in himself and a strong will to face odd situations and come out as a winner from those situations. Communication skills. It is common sense that if a manager has to be a good leader, he needs to communicate well. He needs to be a good communicator. He needs to communicate well with his followers. He must have a proper command on the subjects, on the language in which he has to communicate with his followers. He must be able to understand the psychology of the followers and communicate with them in the right manner, in the right tone, use the proper words. Okay? So proper good communication skills will be necessary to become a good leader. A good leader should be able to communicate clearly and precisely. He must be a good communicator. He should be able to give his messages, ideas, information, opinions, suggestions to his followers very clearly and very specifically, without creating any confusion in their minds. So, a good leader should be able to communicate clearly and precisely the goals and procedures to be followed. This is necessary for persuading and convincing people. He should be able to convince his subordinates to do a particular thing or not to do a particular thing. The skill to listen patiently and with empathy is also necessary. A good communicator is also a good listener. A good communicator does not mean that he has to only say, he has to only communicate, he has to only send messages, give messages. A good communicator has to be a good listener first. So a good leader, as a good communicator, has to be a good listener. He must give a proper heed to what the subordinates are saying. He must listen to their complaints, their grievances, their suggestions, their opinions. Pay proper heed to all those suggestions, requests, problems, whatever they are facing, and after that, give his opinion. So the skill to listen patiently and with empathy is also necessary. Communication skills enable the leader to understand the followers and motivate them. So the good communication skills help a leader to understand his followers and motivate them. He must have vision and foresight. Next point, vision and foresight. A leader should be able to anticipate or visualize the future course of events. He has to have that intelligence to foresee, to visualize what is going to happen in the near future and take actions in advance and prepare his subordinates in advance to face that situation which he feels is going to happen in the near future. So a leader should be able to anticipate or visualize the future course of events. He needs a sound judgment and the ability to take right decisions at the right time. Very important sentence. He needs a sound judgment and he must have the ability to take the right decisions at the right time. Number 10, sense of responsibility. The common sense will tell you that a good leader, a manager who is a good leader, has to be a very responsible person. Because unless he is responsible, the subordinates, his followers, will not come up to him and talk to him freely and express their opinions, their problems and grievances. Only when they feel that our manager, our leader, our superior is a responsible person, then only the subordinates will come to him, approach him and express their problems and grievances, with the expectation that this person is such a responsible person that he would be taking the proper measures to solve our problems and address our grievances. So a leader should be trustworthy. He should be capable of trusting so that the subordinates can depend on him. He should be willing to assume responsibility for results. He needs a strong urge to accomplish the goals. Only a responsible leader can command respect of his followers. Only a responsible leader can command respect from his followers. Close the bracket after point number 10. Number 11 is not required. So mark this topic important and learn very well the essential qualities of a good leader. So leadership, this part, this element of the directing function of management is over. Now we are going to take up the next part, the fourth and the last element or component of the directing function of management, which is communication. So that's element number 4 or component number 4 of the directing function of management, which is called communication. So go to the new topic altogether in the topic list, give the heading communication. Next topic number, new topic number, heading communication. Give a colon, underline, below it write number A, subtopic number A under communication. Number A, definition of communication. Definition of communication. Within brackets, page number 264. In my book, it is page number 264. You check your textbook and write the page number beside the topic. Definition of communication. So open the bracket under meaning of communication, underline meaning of communication, then open the bracket from the first line under meaning of communication. So first let us see that what does the word communication mean, or how can we define the word communication. The term communication, open the bracket from here, the term communication is derived from a or from the Latin word communis, underline communis. The term communication is derived from the Latin word communis, which means common. So the English word communication has been derived from the Latin word communis, which actually means common. So therefore, communication may be defined as the exchange of facts as the, after as please write the, as the exchange of facts, ideas, opinions or emotions between two or more persons to create a common ground of understanding, to create a common ground of understanding. Close the bracket after that. Close the bracket after that. So that is the definition or meaning of communication, that the word communication has been derived from the Latin word communis, which means common, and communication may be defined as the exchange of information, facts, ideas, opinions, suggestions, or even emotions between two or more persons for the purpose of developing mutual understanding between them, for the purpose of developing a common ground of understanding between them, interpersonal relationship between them. So that is what communication is. So we can define communication as the deliberate exchange of ideas, facts, opinions, suggestions, information, and even emotions between two or more persons for the purpose of developing mutual understanding and good relationship between each other or among them. So close the bracket after that. So the definition makes it very clear that for communication to take place, there has to be the involvement of at least two persons. Minimum two persons is required for communication to take place. There can be more people involved in communication as well, more than two. Now next topic, point number B, under communication please write general characteristics of communication. Point number B under communication, general characteristics of communication. Page number 265. Page number 265. So come to page number 265 and open the bracket from this part of the sentence after the definitions. The definitions given above reveal the following characteristics of communication. So you cancel the first part of the sentence, the definitions given above reveal the following, till that much you can cancel, and open the bracket straight away from characteristics of communication. Open the bracket from characteristics of communication and give a colon and underline it. So let us now go through the important characteristics or general characteristics of all types of communication. Number one, two or more persons. Underline the point headings. Point headings must be memorized and written in the answer. Two or more persons. Just now I told you that for any sort of communication to happen, to take place, there has to be an involvement of a minimum of two persons. There can be more persons involved as well. So communication involves at least two persons. The sender of the message is called the communicator. The person who starts the process of communication and sends a message is called the communicator or the sender. And the person to whom the message is sent is called the receiver or the communicatee. So communication involves at least two persons, a sender and a receiver. It is an exchange of information between two or more persons. So communication is an exchange of information of any type between two or more persons. Number two, it is a continuous process. Communication is required every moment, every day, in all sections, in all departments of the organization for the purpose of running the organization. So it is a continuous process. As long as an organization continues to survive, continues to operate, different types of communication will be required for the sake of running the organization. So communication is an ongoing process. Group activity requires a regular flow of information when work is being executed through a team by group activity, then communication becomes all the more important. So group activity requires regular flow of information. Regular instructions, regular orders, regular suggestions must be given to the group so that they can execute the work properly. And that those instructions, suggestions, etc., come to the group through communication. So group activity requires regular flow of information and ideas among the members of the group. Number 3, it is a two-way process. The sender, he starts the process of communication, he initiates the process of communication. Then the message is received by the communicatee, the receiver of the message. He reads the message and comprehends it. And after reading the message and understanding it, he sends a response or reaction back to the sender of the message, which is called a feedback. The communicatee, the receiver of the message, after reading the message, he sends a response or reaction back to the sender, which is called a feedback. And through this feedback, the communicatee, the receiver of the message, lets the communicator know that whether he has understood or not understood the message. So communication has to be a two-way process. It is not an one-sided affair that the communicator, the sender, just gives the message and the communication ends over there. It's not like that. The communicator, the sender, will send the message. It will be received by the communicatee. The communicatee will read it, send a response or feedback back to the sender. Once again, the sender will read the feedback and he will then start the next flow of communication. So it's an ongoing process and it's a two-way process. Communication involves both information and understanding. Communication is not complete until the receiver has understood the message and his reaction or response is, after he is given arrow and right, made known to the sender. So communication does not become complete until and unless the receiver, the communicatee, has understood the message and has sent a reaction or response, which is called a feedback, back to the sender. It is an exchange of facts, ideas and opinions. It is just not giving information. It is an exchange, two-way process, exchange of ideas, facts, information between the communicator and the communicatee. Both of them has to participate in the process of communication. It is a pervasive function, means communication exists or communication has to be carried out in all forms of organizations and within and at all levels of management and anywhere and everywhere within our organization. So it is all pervading in nature. So communication is essential in all types of organizations and at all levels of authority in the organization. It is all pervading. It has multiple channels. Next characteristic, number 5, multiple channels. Now once the message has been made ready, the message which has to be conveyed is ready, has been made ready by the sender, the communicator. Now he needs to send the message through a particular method. So the message has to flow through a particular path or route and reach the communicatee. So this route or path through which the message flows from the sender to the receiver is called a communication channel. The route or path through which links the communicator and the communicatee, and through which the message flows from the communicator to the communicatee is called a channel of communication. Now, this channel of communication, especially in a commercial organization, can be of different types. There are multiple channels of communication. Like a message can be sent by the help with, by a letter, the traditional form, either through registered post or by a courier. A message can be sent very quickly by using email, WhatsApp, whatever, online transfer of messages, online sending of messages. A message can be sent with the help of a fax machine. Message can be given verbally over the telephone. So these are the different channels of communication which link the sender with the receiver of the message, and it is a path through which the message flows from the communicator to the communicatee. So communication may be formal or informal. Even within a commercial organization, communication can become informal as well, both formal or informal. Formal communication may be vertical or horizontal. Formal communication is either vertical or horizontal in nature. Vertical communication means that vertical communication in turn can be of two types: upward communication and downward communication. If you think of an organizational hierarchy, top level, middle level, and the lower level of management, then formal communication is absolutely vertical or horizontal in nature. Vertical communication means upward communication and downward communication through that organizational hierarchy. When communication flows from the lower level to the upper level, vertically upward, it is called upward communication. And when the communication flows from a superior down to a subordinate in the organizational hierarchy, it is a vertical communication, but it's a downward communication, vertically downward. So, formal communication in an organizational setup can be of two types: vertical communication and horizontal communication. Vertical communication in turn can be of two types: upward communication and downward communication. And horizontal communication is that communication where communication takes place between two individuals occupying the same status, designation, or rank in the organization. For example, the head of the marketing department communicating with the head of the finance department. So that is an example of an horizontal communication. So communication can be carried out through a number of channels in a commercial setup. It is a circular process. The message is initiated by the sender, the communicator. The message reaches the communicatee, the receiver. The receiver sends a feedback back to the communicator. The communicator once again starts the second flow of communication. He starts sending the second message. And this process continues over and over again, making it a circular flow. So it is a circular process. So communication involves a circular flow of messages. The response to the message, called a feedback, requires another message to be transmitted by the receiver of the original message. The response indicates the impact of communication. Communication flows in all directions in a business organization. Communication flows in all directions: vertically upward, vertically downward, in an horizontal manner, in a diagonal manner. So communication can flow in all directions in the organizational hierarchy within an organization. So communication may flow horizontally between persons occupying similar ranks in different departments. Just now I gave an example: head of the finance department communicating with the head of the marketing department, horizontal communication. It may flow downward from a superior to his subordinate. It can also flow upward from the subordinate to a superior. Thus, communication flows in all directions in an organization. It is multidimensional in nature. And number 8, communication influences human behavior. So communication is such a powerful tool which can be used by good managers to mold the attitude and behavior of the subordinates and show them the right direction and bring them on the right path. So communication can influence human behavior if used properly. So the main purpose of communication is to influence, is to mold human behavior. It is a means of creating interpersonal relations. Through communication, happy, cordial relations get developed between the superior and the subordinates, between the management and the workers, which is very essential for the success of an organization. A manager creates motivation and loyalty among his subordinates by sharing information, opinions, and feelings with them. And information, opinions, and feelings can be shared with the subordinates only with the help of proper communication. So, a manager creates motivation, takes his subordinates in his confidence, creates trust for himself in the subordinates by continuously communicating with him like a friend, by sharing information, opinions, and feelings with them. So, close the bracket after point number 8. These are the essential characteristics of communication. So, I shall end this session over here. In the next session, we will continue with the remaining portion of communication. Thank you.